Hello and welcome to, I believe this is now the sixth OTK of our summer transfer series, Jason not being here ever thingy. So I've got three guests of me today. First of all, it's a man who loves Big Jeff, or as you now know him, Rene Adelaide. It seems that his love for him is growing with every touch he has. It's the famously bearded man, Mr. John Welsh. How are you doing?
I'm very well. I'm going to immediately apologise to a certain Mr. Danny because he sent me a new webcam, and unfortunately it's messed with my microphone, so we can't use it unless you want me to sound like. I think Chris has said something about me mounting him. I don't know. It was a horrible description. So
That was a
unfortunately we're on
completely
this until we
unrelated
work the kinks out.
But yeah, no, all good, all well and good though. We're loving the non-HD John as just as much anyway. So okay, so second we have the man who has the likes of Mark Chapman and Pugach looking up to them for guidance in all things radio show. It's Mr. Chris Carpenter. How are you?
Just poo more like. I'm good, mate. How are you? It's
Yes,
been a
not
while,
bad.
hasn't it? I
Yeah,
feel like we haven't spoken in a week.
yeah. Or earlier in the group chat today. But anyway,
It's fine.
and finally making his debut on the OTK show. He's unfamiliar to a few of you, but probably familiar to quite a few of you. He's one of our bloggers on ABW. It's Neil. You all right, man? He's muted. So,
He's unmuted, and thank you for having me on, Tom. Thank you.
that's all right, man. How's life? How's the blogging world?
We are looking forward to getting going again, really.
Yeah,
We've been on a summer break, so I think we're all keen to sort of get going again now the season's coming to a start.
good, good. All very good. Okay, so I think Arsenal played today. I was there, so I should know. But yeah, Emirates Cup, we won it. Does it really matter? Does pre-season matter? That seems to be a bit of discussion going on at the moment. So I'll throw it to you, John. Pre-season, Emirates Cup, what are your thoughts?
Well, we won, so it definitely matters. If we lost, obviously it doesn't. That's a simple answer.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter too much. It's just about getting fitness for the team. Today and yesterday is a chance to see some of the new players or younger players. Big Jeff, as you've already spoken about, who we still haven't worked out a name for yet because obviously we've got Jeff, other Jeff. So he's either other Jeff or another Jeff or some variation thereof. We'll leave that out to everyone in the chat box to work out. But yeah, no, it was a good weekend, good run out, lots of lovely goals, nice to win a trophy, and nice to see Lord Bentner back as well.
Yes, no, it's always good to see Mr. Bentner back. Well, maybe some people would disagree, but still. Chris, yeah, first day, Saturday, 6-0. Pretty good result, eh? Against your side, though. So.
Wasn't bad, was it? Leon was still on the beach, I think, to be honest. Just on Big Jeff, could we maybe go with J-Ra? Is that a bit too ghetto?
J-Ra.
J-Ra?
Go on, elaborate on that.
Well, if you look at his initials.
Oh.
You see? Yes,
That just makes me think of Mum Ra from.
yeah. It's like
no, that's Thundercats, yeah.
it's like J-Lo without the arse. But yeah. Anyway, moving swiftly onwards. Yeah, she just turned 46, by the way. Still looks great. Anyway, it was quite the day. I kind of tuned in. I played a charity tournament yesterday morning. Got home from that. Thought, do a bit of housework, and thought I'll just watch a little bit here and there, and just sort of see how it goes. And thought it would be one of those games I'd just watch bits of and just flick my eyes across the screen every once in a while. But they very quickly turned into no, I need to watch this quite intently. So I'm glad I did. Really, I mean, it's not every day you belt a team like Leon by 6, and whilst they were clearly not or Leon were really not up for it at all from what I could see, which is a bit of a worry for them because their season actually starts the same time as ours, Premier League wise or League One wise. It's only 2 weeks away, so they'll be concerned from their side of things. Of course, it was all just a big performance just to make everyone think that Lacazette is actually crap. That's all it was. So then when we sign him for 60 million, it'll be something else for people to moan about. But I joke, of course. It was just a thoroughly good performance, and obviously we'll go into it in more depth at a later date. But it was impressive, and today, whilst it wasn't as impressive, 2 wins, another trophy, can't really complain, can you?
No, definitely not. Neil, like, on that whole Lacazette thing that Chris very nicely segued there, like thoughts on like performance-wise, and has it changed your mind on that sort of player, knowing your opinions or whatever on it that is?
Hasn't massively changed my opinion. I mean, it's a pre-season game, so it is genuinely hard to judge, and you can only really take a player across the whole season and to see how many goals a striker will score. I mean, Chris really is our expert on Laka. He has very, very good things to say. I don't think it's particularly what we need currently, but he's certainly not going to be a bad player over 90 minutes.
No, obviously not. And Chris, I'll go quickly back to you. We got to see Nabil Fekir play as well. Any thoughts on how he performed?
Flashes of what he can do, flashes. The biggest problem with Nabil Fekir going forward is probably going to be Nabil Fekir, to be honest, because he's a little bit of a tetchy individual and has a little bit of the old gobbiness about him off the pitch. So there was a little bit of talk that he was going to try and talk his way into a move this summer. Obviously, that's not materialised. I think he's at the right place. He's obviously now signed a new contract, which probably means not very much. I'm sure we'll cover contracts in a minute, but all it really does is increase his value. But listen, the lad is hugely talented. He will move eventually because all good players in the French league do. But yeah, well, he showed in flashes over the course of this weekend what he can do, and he'll be another one of those that will be very keenly watched into next season to see how he progresses, and especially if Lyon gets sort of anywhere near far in the Champions League, he'll definitely be one on a lot of people's radars.
Yeah, no. I got a pleasure to see him play. Like, to be honest, I've only really seen him on FIFA. So, and that sounds so rubbish to say, but I'm not a big league person like you, Chris. So I don't often get to see him play. But yeah, okay, we'll throw it over to a question for the chat box. I'm going to ask you three individually, but people in the chat box, let's say hello to a few people first. We've got Akib in there. Akib, Dr. Gray, Danny obviously in there. We've got Marquisa Quali, and Luca. Back to you, Luca. So, question for you in the chat box. Who was your player of the Emirates Cup? And John, I'm going to throw it to you first.
Ooh. That's really difficult. I really like Jeff. He was awesome, but I can't give it to him. He would be if you could have a young player of the tournament, I'd definitely give that to Jeff. And then, for me, it'd be Ozil. Ramsey runs him really close because the way they played in the first game yesterday, they were brilliant. But Ozil all weekend played the full 90, and then was it 60 minutes? Was it today? Something like that.
Yeah. No, he played first half.
He was making some great runs in behind. Showed that he could play well. I mean, we all know he can play with any type of forward. But it shows the way he can do it with a different type of player, whether it's Giroud or Walcott through the middle. But I mean, lots of players really played well. Coquelin was great. Also, Chamberlain was really outstanding in bursts. Lots of exciting young players who a lot of people maybe haven't seen so much of. I mean, I'd never heard of anything at all about the Jeff, who second bit of his name that I can't do. Danny's new favourite player because he's got a normal name. But yeah, I think I'd have to give it to Ozil. He was just superb, just brilliant to watch. Can slow the game down, speed it up, just marvellous all through the tournament.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it looks like some people in the chat box are agreeing with you as well there. Chris, your one?
Well, yeah, I'm probably going to go with what everyone else is saying. Ozil for me. Again, like John said, Ramsey was close. I think the two of those are going to be really, really good to watch this year. So rather than sort of answering the question as you would ask, I would just slightly veer it another way and just say that there were two players for me that stood out and have done really for pre-season as a whole. One is Chuba Akpom. I think it's a big season for the lad, whether he stays or whether he goes out on loan again or not. I think it's a big season for him. I know he got a little bit of criticism yesterday for sort of trying to do it all, but I don't really have a problem with that. You know, he was energetic, he was trying to make an impression, and he looked committed and sharp. So he was one I'd pick out, and the other one would have been, as John said, Coquelin. Not so much because, obviously we know how he essentially transformed our season last year, but I thought he looked even better again yesterday. He looked like he was using the ball better yesterday, and it looks like he's been working on distribution throughout the summer or sort of in the off period of time. So he's going to be one that is funny that a player that a player that not many people would have necessarily known was still at the club a year ago, is now going to be one of the very first names on the team sheet going into the season. So they were the two that I picked out, and Arsenal, we should also give a nod to Petr Cech making his debut today. The guy's fantastic, and it's great to have him as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. I did give a little ironic cheer every single time he touched the ball, so that was probably annoying for the person sitting next to me. But Neil, A4 Arsenal's also asked the best non-Arsenal player of the tournament. I don't know how much you got to see of the tournament, but you got any thoughts on that?
I can tell you I was really disappointed with someone. I was disappointed with the Wolfsburg fullback today. I was expecting to see really big things from him.
Rodriguez?
Yeah, I heard a lot. I'd seen bits of him, and I thought, especially when Chamberlain was on the pitch, he gave him a terrible, terrible time. I mean, he'd been muted about a potential transfer to ourselves, Chelsea as well, I think, and I just thought he looked completely out of sorts. I mean, pre-season games are hard to judge. I'll give it that. To be fair, I think we were the real standout team. I think we played the best football. We played quick football. I thought we looked extremely fit as well. All the players looked really, really sharp, especially Aaron Ramsey and the Ox specifically, I thought. But it's looking good.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree there. And Dukes has put in the chat about Baptistao for Villarreal was very good, and I actually tweeted out before the Villarreal match saying he's the one to watch this match, and he got a goal. So that's not being all hipster and stuff, but I'd have to claim a little bit of credit there. But yeah, so okay, we'll move on a little bit. So on the Saturday, Giroud got a goal, started up front. On the Sunday, Walcott started up front and he got a goal. So there's still a bit of back and forth argument about who should start up front and whether we actually need another striker to come in. So John, I'll throw this to you first. Thoughts on the Walcott v Giroud sort of debate, and do you think, if you want to add into it as well, we need another striker to come in with all these links flying around?
I'm not convinced that we necessarily do. I'd never say no to a player if they're of the right quality. I think that's the difference now. If you look at how good our team is, just across all positions generally, it's so hard for just our own members of the squad just to get into the starting 11 that the fact that you can choose between Giroud or Walcott to play up front, you have Danny Welbeck as well, obviously injured at the moment. You've seen the way the team's played. I know it is pre-season. Alexis Sanchez has still got to come into that side. So if we went out to sign another striker, it's got to be someone who is good enough that, for me, starts every single game. The list of players that can do that are good enough, is very, very small. And the list of those that you could realistically buy, possibly non-existent this summer. There may be one or two, depending on other things. But it's sort of the famous Wenger thing, if someone of exceptional quality comes up, then, we will try to get them. Well, I think it rings true when you look at our squad now. I mean, just looking at that young kid, Jeff, going back to him again, I mean, he's a 17-year-old, and you saw the confidence in the way he played. If he did that week in, week out in training, there's no reason to say that he couldn't get himself into the squad, and that bumps someone down who's even more senior. So, you're getting so many options now in the team. So I think I'm happy as it is. If a quote-unquote world-class player, striker became available, then I wouldn't say no to it. Definitely, you'd want them, but I just don't think there is necessarily that player available.
No, that's all fair enough. And it was interesting comments from Wenger after the game saying that Adelaide wouldn't be going on loan, and it's time that he started integrating with the first team in training as well, which is also quite interesting. So he must feel quite highly rated about this big Jeff guy. So Chris, Walcott v Giroud, thoughts?
Well, yeah, this is going to be one that runs and runs, isn't it? We were having a debate about this in one of our groups, and I'm kind of in the same camp as John and our good pal, other Jeff, OG. I think, put it this way, I think Theo Walcott, if he stays, good, I'm pleased. I like Theo Walcott. I think he gives us something different. I think he gives us something that Danny Welbeck wouldn't give us even when fit. I think Welbeck is a slightly different sort of option. And I think for my money, Welbeck would be, he wants to play centrally. To be honest, I think he'd be better off trying to carve a niche, sort of playing wide and cutting in, because I don't think he's going to get many chances through the middle if Walcott is going to get that option. The biggest kind of debate about all this is whether Walcott will get the goals, and whether he convinces a few. And today it was almost like a parody of itself, where you saw. It was summed up brilliantly when you saw Walcott go through from, I think it was a back pass from somebody that didn't quite get there, and he got through on goal, and he had all the time in the world and cocked it up. And then he gets a goal, which was a fantastic piece of play from J. Ra to set him through, and it was a lovely finish. He had no time to think about it. He just used his best asset, pace, and it was a really good finish because he didn't have time to think about it. And my concern would be is that if teams are going to park the bus against us and we're playing a Walcott, Jeff made this point earlier on, is I worry if he will be able to if he'll be able to make those runs in behind when he's got a team that just park the bus in front of him. I'm not sure whether we'll be able to find those gaps to feed him. That being said, if you're looking at it sort of from the Arteta Coquelin argument, where you're saying, look, for 10, 15 games a season we play Theo through the middle in the home games or against some of the lesser sides, yeah, I think you can do that. But from Theo Walcott's point of view, I would imagine he'll want a bit more of an assurance that he's going to be used, not as a make-weight centre forward, but as a genuine competition for Giroud. The only other X factor in all this, of course, which I don't think anyone's really thought about, is could they be used as a 2? Now, I'm not suggesting we'll go 4-4-2, so to speak, but I wonder if maybe we could end up doing a variation of last season's failed 4-1-4-1, whereby we sort of have because obviously we started the season and we had 4-1-4-1, but the one was Arteta, which clearly, I love Mikel Arteta, but it didn't work because he wasn't mobile enough. Coquelin is mobile enough to play one in front of a back four. And I wonder if you might even see in some games where we revert to a 4-1-3-2. Does that work? I think it works. So you've got the likes of an Ozil, a Ramsey, and another in behind. Obviously Alexis, when he's back fit, in behind potentially a Walcott playing off of a Giroud. And sometimes Giroud will come deep and try and flick on. I don't know if you remember the goal that Adebayor scored at Old Trafford years and years and years ago, where I think it was a flick on and he kind of ran in through the middle and just clipped it underneath. I think it's Kuszak back in those days, but that kind of role, almost the big man, little man. So sometimes Giroud will come deep and flick it on, and sometimes Walcott will come deep and then try and pick the ball up and run at people. So, it's interesting. I'm not convinced. I suppose if you said to me you can have quote unquote a proven world-class goal scorer, as John said, I think I'd take it. Not just because it probably guarantees you those 20 goals that Walcott doesn't yet guarantee you, but also it makes another massive statement. We've made a statement with Petr Cech. I can only imagine what other managers of other teams would think if we made another massive statement. So we'll come on to names in a minute, but yeah, I remain on the fence, and so much so that I've got splinters in my arse.
How very graphic for us, Chris. Very nice. Neil, yeah, let's get your thoughts on the whole Giroud Walcott debate.
It's a really interesting debate. The fact of the matter is you need both. The squad needs both, and I think you can almost look at it that different players for different games. I think Sir Alex was the king really of picking teams to beat certain opposition, and I'm not sure Arsenal's going to suddenly sort of start changing whole sides dependent on opposition. But I think Walcott and Giroud offer two completely different options really. For me, I am on the Walcott side. I said to the guys in the WhatsApp group today that you play with Theo Walcott through the middle, he's a 20-goal Premier League goals a season guy. He's so instinctive, and the chances he would get in this side would mean he would get 20 goals, probably 20 goals plus. I'm not suggesting he would get that in other sides in the Premiership, but with this side, with Ozil, Ramsey, Alexis, and the chances that we do create, he would get those goals. And I think too often last season we were in a position where we could have done with a Theo Walcott, needed that pace, because so many times at home we were so slow and we were going left to right, and it's always really pretty to watch, but it's the cutting edge. And you look at someone like Ozil and he needs someone like Walcott ahead of him. There's no point. He doesn't want to fling it into Giroud's feet. He wants to find a through ball for Walcott, which is why when he was at Real Madrid, playing in Ronaldo's and Benzema's, where they want it on the floor in front of them, that's where he's at his best.
Yeah, no. I think it is one that's going to run, and as you've all three of you pointed out, they're two completely different players, and they're bringing different qualities to the team. Okay, so we'll move on to the next sort of area which we want to talk about, which is I wanted to do a quick little look forward to the Community Shield, only very, very briefly. John, how do you think we stack up against the likes of Chelsea right now? We've had 4 games in pre-season, we've won them all, some quite comfortably and some quite impressively. So, how do you think that's stacking up against Chelsea right now?
It's always difficult to say with pre-season. It's hard to get a real indication. But I say this pre-season they do look very sharp, a lot fitter than they have done in previous pre-seasons before. Whether that's down to Shad Forsyth, it might be part of it. Obviously, no World Cup has definitely had an influence, because obviously a lot of our players came back tired from that. So it'll be an interesting game. I mean, I haven't seen enough of Chelsea. I saw briefly the game the other night that they played, so I haven't seen enough of them in pre-season to know where they are with their fitness levels. But hopefully it's a win, and it's a good indication of what we can expect for the season. But yeah, they definitely look, or we definitely look so much fitter than we did last year. And if we can keep this sort of momentum going, and then you bring Alexis back into that side, then it really bodes well for the rest of the season.
No, yeah, I'd agree. Chris, we'll move on to you. What do you think of stacking up to Chelsea coming up on Sunday? Have we got more of a chance against them than we have in the previous matches we played them, or is it just a pre-season friendly, still being the Community Shield, and doesn't really matter towards anything?
I think it matters. I think it matters a lot more than many people will think. I think Neil might say the same in a minute, but I think it's a huge psychological thing now. In almost in a way that the top 4 thing was a psychological issue last year. We put that to bed. I think it makes a huge statement, and it's not so much Arsenal beating Chelsea. It's Arsene Wenger and Mourinho. It's the way that you go into a season, and it sets a marker. I don't think Mourinho has made it any, or I don't think he could have made it any clearer that he wasn't particularly chuffed that we took arguably the second best keeper in the league, and the only one that's better than him probably is the one who's taken his space. I think if Mourinho had his way, he'd have gone anywhere but to us. So I think that's a shot across the bows, and I think a victory against them in however it comes would be a huge statement. Does it mean anything in the grand scheme of things? No, not a lot. If somebody said to me you can lose 1-0 but you'll get no injuries, would I take it? Probably, but that's in a hypothetical world. And I think that if you look at the reaction to what we did last year when we really spanked Man City, okay, granted, yeah, the league didn't start well after that, and it almost felt like a false dawn after Villa and all that, but I do think that it will set a marker. I think it will make people sit up and take notice of us. And at the end of the day, it's the first opportunity that the two teams get to showcase where they are. I watched Chelsea closely last night against PSG. I'll be honest, I wasn't impressed. Very, very samey to last year. Very much sit defensively, try and get the ball to Costa. A physical approach. And there wasn't a lot of quality, and defensively, particularly Gary Cahill looked pretty rough. Now, obviously, yeah, again, pre-season you can't judge too much, but if we go out next weekend and we put in a top performance, I think personally we can really rattle Chelsea, and if there's one thing that Mourinho doesn't like, it's getting beat. So that should be the goal: win and win well. But at this stage, for me, yes, it does mean something because it's psychological.
Yeah, no, there was some debates going on Twitter about it, and I voiced the opinion that if we were to beat Chelsea, I think it would take a lot of the pressure off Wenger in the games leading up to the games in the league, just simply because he then no longer has that duck that he's got to beat, and that's out of the window. I mean, Neil, are you in like agreement with that sort of point of view, or have you got a different sort of area of thought?
I'm with both of you, to be honest, mate. I think it's probably more important to us than it is to them. Um, as you mentioned, it is the Wenger Mourinho thing. It's certainly not going to do us any harm winning. Is it going to affect us losing? Possibly. I don't know how strong this team is yet. I don't think any of us do. I mean, it's looking stronger and stronger mentally. But we've got a winning habit at Wembley, and winning habits are good habits. So it would be really nice to continue that. I do think we're in good shape for it. I didn't think Chelsea looked great the other day, but you know, as we said, it's pre-season. This pre-season's been interesting. We haven't done as much flying around as I'm sure the club would like to would have liked the team to have done. They kept it really short and sweet in Singapore. They didn't go anywhere else. I think if Wenger had his way, he would have not gone to Singapore and he would have just had him in Austria for a couple of weeks. But I think he's tried to keep it really close to home and gone sort of old school. I don't think the recent starts to the season have been helped by the tours that we've done.
No, no. I think it's probably a good thing, not going, keeping it short and sweet, keeping the players focused that they're only going to one place. You play a couple of matches, one against the Premier League side, which is also a good thing. You're not playing against some random Asian teams. You're actually playing against someone you're going to come up against competition with, which is important to gauge like sort of levels of how they're performing as well. So, okay, so we've covered the Emirates Cup. We've covered thoughts on moving on to Chelsea. Let's go back and focus on more of what this vidcast is about, which is obviously transfers, because we know how much you guys love that. So the obvious one. Let's just go for it as quickly, smash through it, because I know it bores a lot of people, but it seems to be the big thing going around at the moment, and that is a certain Karim Benzema. Now, according to reports, if you can believe them, we've had a £31 million bid rejected. And the Telegraph recently put out an article saying we're going to up that to about £35.3 million. Chris, I'll come to you first. We'll go in a different order this time. Let's go for the fact 35.3 million. If we were just simple facts about if we were going to spend that much on Benzema, is he worth it? And would you bid any less, bid any more? Is that the sort of price range you would be thinking for that type of player?
Well, no. It's the short answer to that one. If I mean, we're obviously quite famous for bidding low and trying to get high. Karim Benzema is not going to leave Real Madrid, in my opinion. I'll say that. 26th of July, 10 past 10 at night. There you go. You got me on record. I just can't see it. The president loves him. He's very well thought of at Madrid. I think he's publicly come out, I think I'm right in saying, and said that he doesn't want to leave. And it doesn't matter who comes in. He wants to be there. Now, the one thing is, obviously, in football, things can change very quickly. Without any sort of prior knowledge of anything coming. We all saw that with Mesut Ozil. It was all done very quickly. Nobody really saw it coming. Well, some people saw it coming, but most of us didn't see any of that coming. So what I would say is that if he suddenly becomes available, or if it's public knowledge that Real are happy to let him go, and usually the Real Madrid publicity machine is usually pretty open about when they're happy to let a player go. They don't usually keep it quiet. If that happens, should we be in for him? Yes. Will we be the only team in for him? Probably not. I think Man United will be looking for a striker. There's a couple of other sides in Europe that are still sniffing around for a centre forward. And we'll probably cover this in a minute with Neil, but the sort of dominoes idea, I still think there's quite a big amount of business to be done for 5 or 6 of Europe's elite clubs. And does Benzema fit as one of those dominoes? Possibly. As regards would I have him? Yes, I would. I think he's, I I don't think he's an upgrade on Giroud. I think he's something different to Giroud. There's this misconception flying around that he would come and just be like Giroud. That's absolute crap. Anyone that has watched Karim Benzema play, he's a lot quicker. He's probably technically as good as Giroud, if not better. But he offers something different to Giroud, and the French connection is there for all to see. 36 million, it's not going to happen. I think we'll have to go to at least 50. But I'm sure we'll come on to it in a minute. But if I had to put my name or my head on the block, I'm calling bullshit on that one, I'm afraid.
Okay, fair enough. Pretty strong views on Benzema there, Chris. It's nice of you to push the boat out a little. John, let's go on to what you're thinking.
Oh, I'm so fucking bored of Karim Benzema. Oh, Jesus. I don't even watch La Liga half the time. Seriously.
Get off the fence, John, for Christ's sake.
God. Oh, would I have him in the team? Yes. Is 35 million a good price for him? Yes. Is 35 million going to get him? No. Is he going to leave Madrid? No. Fuck off. Seriously, that's it. I'm done. I can't be bothered.
Okay. Neil.
How can I follow that up?
Okay, we'll change it slightly. So, Benzema, on the views of John, fuck him, basically.
I think
go on.
it's a whole lot of wasted time, even talking about it. Just for the fact that Madrid aren't going to sell him, and I don't think it's actually the person we're after, which is probably a big waste of time. I know there's reports of this bid, that bid, but let's be honest, how many people would we have actually bid for if you believe every bid that you've read in a newspaper? I mean, we'd have about 100 players in the squad to start with. But the fact that they've even mentioned us talking about 33 million or whatever it is, I mean, you'd need to start with an extra 15, 20 on top of that, because he's not going for any less than that. But I can't see him going anywhere.
No, it's a fair point. So, okay, so what sort of striker targets would you be looking at for our sort of team, and what ones are out there and available? Because to be honest, what I can see, there aren't actually too many strikers with the quality to come into play for us.
Oh, I've had this discussion with a lot of people, and I know Chris hates this phrase as well, but world-class striker. There are a certain level, there are Messi, Suarez, Neymar, Aguero, and then underneath that, who do you really have? I mean, I guess Giroud, Benzema, they have to be close to them, but I don't think there's much between them. I don't know who improves this side. Of course, a Sergio Aguero would improve this side, but like you said, it has to be a gettable player, and who is actually gettable, I don't know.
No, it's a fair point. So, while we're on transfers, Chris, I'm going to hand this over to you slightly because you talk to Neil a lot more than I do. Unfortunately, I mean, you seem to be a great guy, Neil. So, Chris, yep, you can take over from now, and we've got a little section on transfers mainly while we have Neil on tonight. So,
Yeah. Basically, obviously we've kind of done a brief introduction, but for those that don't know Neil's been with our ABW bloggers team since it was sort of created, so to speak. The last season when we started our Twitter handle for that as well, and Neil's got a little bit of inside knowledge. Don't worry, he's not a Jeff Arsenal, so please don't bombard him with questions because he's a busy man. But it's fair to say Neil knows a bit about transfers and how things work and how sort of things go through with regards to clubs. What I wanted to do, Neil, if possible, is just for our sort of listeners' benefit, if you can just talk us through a little bit about how transfers happen, i.e. how the clubs contact each other, what sort of how the information gets passed, and maybe just touch a little bit on this, what we were talking about with the domino effect of transfers as well, in that how sort of one person can lead to another one. And even obviously with Alexis Sanchez last year, a lot of people were sort of saying that we got him early and all this, and refused to believe that there was other things going on for Barca to replace. But maybe just touch on the idea that certain clubs have to sell. And as you also just mentioned, can you also touch on the fact that there's a lot of business going on that we really have no idea about, that doesn't actually come off and is never reported? So can you just give us sort of a bit of insight as to what you know about transfers and how they all operate?
I can, depends how long you guys have got.
Go gold.
The transfers are actually really, really interesting things, and I know that probably sounds quite boring to a lot of people because most people just want to know who they're signing and when they're signing. Transfers are done in such an old school way. I was saying the other day that occasionally managers do talk and that they do have the odd conversation these days, but when a club actually wants somebody, an official bid is actually put in and it's almost always sent in by fax, believe it or not. So football clubs are the people who are still buying fax machines. It was also sometimes followed up with an email, but that is the basis. This is how it starts. I think another point that people probably aren't aware is how many deals are actually agreed, but never actually come to fruition, and that can be for so many reasons. And 9 times out of 10, it's the players themselves that don't want the move. That could be anything from location to certain things in contracts. Contracts these days are so complex. Players want things included that most of us wouldn't even think of, from who pays for dog sitting to is there a car allowance, is there a housing allowance, really, really, really bizarre things. But getting transfers over the line is really, really difficult. And people always think that we, as a club, take so long to get things over the line. 9 times out of 10 is because we actually do things properly. It's very, very rare for us to be in a situation where a player turns up and is unhappy and they disappear, which does happen all over Europe, really, with clubs who end up landing players that don't really want to be there. I think the classic ones are always the Brazilians that get shipped over to the Ukraine for big money and then they can't settle. Even though we have London as one of the best cities, it's still lots of things that do mean that players that don't want the move for lots and lots of reasons.
Can you you alluded to a story the other day about you heard a little story about a certain club in the red half of a certain place called Manchester about was it youth team? Can you just let us in on a little bit of a story about that, about their demand?
Yes, the all clubs nowadays have sort of I think they used to be sort of like liaison officers. They've almost become sort of PAs for these kids now, where they basically can have what they want when they want at a touch of a button. And bearing in mind that the person that's looking after these guys was in London, and these guys were based in Manchester, actually phoned this person and asked for a pizza to be delivered to them because they weren't aware of the number to phone or how to do it. So it is really the nowadays that they have no idea of the real world, and they start that very early, as you can see.
It's funny, isn't it, really? And also the other thing I wanted to pick up on as well, without going sort of too into detail, with regards to players that Arsene Wenger himself will identify. There's always a lot of talk about, this player, we're in for this player, we're in for that player. He essentially requests a scouting report, from what you're told. Is that kind of right? And he gets like a list of things that he looks for, and he's very, very big on what players are like off the pitch, aren't they?
Yes. Quite simply, he won't sign idiots. He also won't sign bad boys. Quite simply, he's, I'm sure we all know, a very ethical, polite man is Arsene, and he really does expect the same from the players. He knows exactly what somebody can do on a pitch. There's not a scouting report is going to tell him something that he can't see. But what he doesn't want to know is he wants to know the inside of the player. What does the guy do after training? What does he do on a Saturday night? What does he do in the off season? Where does he holiday? What does he do on holiday? It's literally all these kind of questions where you build a proper portfolio on the person before he moves forward with them. He's been very interested in people in the past, and when it's got to that stage, should we say the players' credentials have let them down. That's been off the pitch, and also personality-wise, that just haven't got them into a club like Arsenal.
Yeah, it's an interesting side of things. And just finally, before I pass it back to Tom, 'cause I'm sure he'll have questions for you as well, John. With regards to players or the sort of the squad that he's building at the moment, the squad that he's got at the second, people have been alluding to these names, this world class striker, blah blah blah. Our own Jeff Arsenal has pretty much said on a public forum, as have a few other high profile Twitterati, shall we say, have said that the club are looking for a quote unquote big name, and there's irons in the fire there. From Arsene Wenger's point of view, in your opinion, do you think that that's a case of if the right one comes available, he'll move, or do you think it's a case of he's actively pursuing one with a view that whatever happens, he'll get somebody, or do you just think it's literally like, no, there is one or two, and if he can't get those, he'll stay as he is?
He, in my opinion, will stick with exactly as we are now, unless the one becomes available. To be quite honest, and that one is not Karim Benzema. But he knows what he wants to add to this squad because he's very happy with where it is, and you can tell that. I mean, there were noises all summer about Schneiderlin and Vidal, which I thank God they both signed for other clubs now. They were never in the market for these players. He was quite settled on the fact that if Arteta came back and said, "Boss, I'm fit enough for one more season," that's what he was going to go with. He was going to go with Coquelin and Arteta as his deputy. So he knows exactly what he wants. I think the Lord Harris's interview the other day, however bumbling it might have been, gave away, I think, kind of trade secret in the fact that he did say, listen, there is somebody he wants. Whether we can get him is kind of doubtful. And I think that everybody who read the article pieced it together, A, B, C, and came out with G, and it must be Benzema. But what can you do? That is what is going to happen at this time of year. It is silly season, but the original question, if he can get his main man, then he'll grab him.
I just had one other quick one, sorry, just before I hand back to Tom, that you just reminded me there. Just quickly talk us through Schneiderlin. As I say, everybody was convinced it was welcome Schneiderlin, and all this crap that was going around, and it's well documented that we were in for him last year, from what I can gather, and it was quite far down the road. Obviously, we didn't pull the trigger on it. You had quite a nice story that you heard about Mikel Arteta, and you alluded to it there about how he was going to make a judgment before he even signed a new contract, in that he was not willing to sign a contract and take the club's money if he didn't feel that he could contribute as much as he can. And whatever anyone thinks of the guy, that's class for me. Just sort of talk us through the Schneiderlin thing, in that how much crap was basically talked on Twitter all summer, in the fact that from what it was really not ever going to happen, was it?
No, that's spot on. Last year, he didn't pull the trigger. A deal was there. And the time we went back to them, they'd sold so many players, they just said no more. So we kind of missed the boat last summer if there was going to be a time to have done it. This season, the interest just wasn't there. And it was, as you rightly said, it was Arteta having a deal on the table for the whole summer, really, which he could have just signed at any time, but he didn't. He is a fantastic guy. He is a real captain. He respects the club. He really respects the manager. And I think he made a decision that not many footballers would have made. Most footballers would have signed the thing and just taken the money, but this was not something that he was going to do. He wanted to come back to pre-season. He came back fit, and he wanted to make sure when he was tested on all the bits and bobs that he was ready to go, and he wanted to be able to play a part when and if called upon, and he's proved it. Even in the pre-season, every newspaper and Twitter feed we've seen is Arteta's injured, and come match day there he is trotting about and playing football. So it seems that there is a real anti-Arteta amongst our fans and media, which I don't really know why, but the guy's only done fantastic things for the club, and all he ever does is try his best, and he's a leader, and he is extremely popular in the dressing room.
And he's got lovely hair. That's kind of my Q&A done. Sorry for hijacking there, Tom, but yeah, crack on with anything you wanted to ask, Neil.
Oh no, that's fine. No, I found that all very interesting. If I may, Neil, when you were talking about the type of players that Wenger wants to sign, about he won't sign bad boys and he won't sign players with bad reputations, so how far is that sort of going? Like when you look at the summer before last, I think it was being last year when Chelsea brought in Diego Costa and the like, and everyone was crying out for us to bring in Diego Costa, and we know the type of reputation he has, where he's a bit of a bruiser. He goes out and he'll put a tackle in that people might say is a bit harsh, or put an elbow in there and what about, is that the sort of behaviour that he doesn't really like, or is it more off the pitch sort of stuff that he's not really that sort of type of person to buy?
That's a really good question. Without sitting on the fence, it's kind of both. He doesn't want the Nicholas Bentners who's going to fall out the club with his trousers around his ankles, because they just don't get on at Arsenal, and eventually, literally, and they will always find the way out of the door. What you'll find is when they've been kids at Arsenal, he always gives them sort of more than sort of one or two chances. Jack's the perfect example, of course, who has had a few run-ins, shall we say, and Wojciech as well. And Wojciech's Arsenal future, according to a lot of people, is over. It's not over. He will be back, and he does have a future at the club. He's been here since he's 16 years of age, and that's one of the kind of things that Wenger sees as massively important. He was never going to bring in somebody who's been punching people on the pitch, etc., because that's just not Wenger.
Oh, fair enough. John, I'll give it to you if you want to ask Neil anything.
No, I mean, I think you covered everything. I hope everyone in the chat is now going to go follow Neil on Twitter and bombard him with questions, because he seems to know so much more than all of us. I'm not sure we should have had him on. This is supposed to be the Out of the Know vidcast. We're not supposed to know anything at all. We're betraying our trade name. We get done by trades and standards for this. Yeah, Kelly, you definitely behave in the chat, being very naughty. No, sorry, I have nothing at all there. You've covered everything brilliantly. So I'll pass it back to you, Tom, because I'm sure you've got a few more questions and a few more nonsense transfer stories, no doubt, floating about.
Okay. First of all, before we carry on, Neil, that was some great insight. I'm sure people watching, whether this is live or them back, they would have found that really interesting. So we appreciate you coming on to say all that. So yeah, okay, we'll move on. So a couple of players going out the club, we can have a bit of a chat about. So first of all, we talk about Flamini. Klaas Waterman wrote a question in the chat earlier on, saying about how he feels that the way Flamini's sort of leaving is gone a bit under the radar, and people aren't really paying attention to it, which personally I wouldn't really agree with. I think that it has been publicised on social media and stuff about how people feel about it, and if in the way that if he was to go out, we would need to bring someone in. Chris, Flamini going out to, I believe it's Galatasaray, is the main link. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised, if I'm honest, from player or club's perspective. I mean, I think he's kind of the not so much the odd man out, but if Arteta's going to stay and is likely to be the deputy or somebody who's going to cover that role, then I think Flamini's kind of the man who isn't going to get games. I was a little bit surprised because I thought maybe he would end up being cover, possibly at fullback, but I suppose when you've got Chambers as well, do you really need that cover? I like Flamini. I think some of the vitriol that was spewed across Twitter, I mean, who'd have thought Twitter would spew vitriol? But some of the stuff that was said the other night was just fucking disrespectful, to be honest. I mean, the guy left, true, but he gave good service when he was here. I don't think you could ever doubt his service when he was at the club, and he decided to move on for a better price contract at AC Milan, and you know what, fair enough. He didn't slag the club off. He didn't go to a Grand Prix and go on strike, and he didn't go to one of our biggest rivals. So I think he's earned the fact he came back. Let's not forget, he came back and was just training with us, nothing more, nothing less. We could easily have said thanks very much, off you go, but he impressed so much. I think not only with his sort of his attitude in training, but the fact that he still had it. So, fair play. He's given us some service. Smashed Danny Rose in half, which is absolutely fine by me. And I think if he does go, fair play to him. We didn't pay a penny for him as well. People forget that. So if we end up getting a couple of quid for him on the way out, then fine. I think my only concern with it, if the player wants to move, we all know what Arsene Wenger's like. If a player has actively said, I'd like to get first team football elsewhere, generally the manager will let them move, because he doesn't like to quote unquote kill careers. And I think that's it's class for the manager, to be fair, because a lot of other teams, Chelsea, would just leave people to rot in the reserves and not care about them. So I think my only concern, if Flamini does go, is that does take one more option out of that midfield. Whether you call it holding midfield or whatever midfield role, it's another midfielder gone. So I was surprised we didn't see Christian Bielik in this Emirates tournament. I thought we'd see a little bit of him, unless he's really ready to go and we're trying to keep him quiet. But that would be my only concern, would be numbers. But if the guy wants to move, and the fee and everything suits the club, then goes with our blessing, and I would say thank him rather than slate him personally.
Fair enough. My thoughts are, like, family. He's been a great servant to the club. It has to be said. I mean, the season when he came in, he was touted as the sort of the best signing of the summer in some ways, because he actually provided that defensive cover in midfield that we were lacking, even though he managed to pick up a yellow card almost 99% of all the games he played in. But still, you get that with those DMs. But John, if Flamini was to go, do you think we would? Is it not enough just to have Coquelin and Arteta in that position?
It's difficult to call, because I'm not sure how much Flamini would have played if he stays anyway. I wouldn't give him all the stick that he's been getting. I don't know why he's been getting so much stick. I don't think he's done anything except being excellent for the club in both his stints there. People forget about him in the Champions League final run. Was it left back? He was playing most of the games, and he was great in that. And he decided to leave, and that was up to him. His contract ran down. That's his decision. We offered him a contract when he was out of contract with Milan, and he decided to come back. And he came back, and he really helped the team. I think Mesut will be a bit upset, losing his best friend. Apparently, is their best buddies in the dressing room. But if he goes, then I hope he does well. I think the team itself is probably equipped enough to play, because I don't think he was going to get in the team. Like Chris, I thought we might have seen Bielik possibly play, but also who was the young lad who came on today? Name's now lost on me. Isaac Hayden.
Isaac Hayden, yeah.
Yeah. I know it was only a brief cameo, but he tore around the pitch quite well. Looked quite athletic. Flew into a nice challenge. Got himself up the pitch and had a shot. That's a bit un-Flamini-esque, but there's obviously there's a feeling within the club, and that Arsene, and as Neil was alluding to earlier, that the midfield it's there, it's fine, it doesn't need changing. I think the way you see Arteta, when Arteta and Cazorla played, although the first half we started a bit slower in the game today, it's a slightly different approach when we have those two, and it's more controlling the game and a bit slower paced than perhaps when you have Coquelin and we can push higher up the pitch. So you've got options to change it there. And the fact is, I think you've also got Aaron Ramsey, players like that. Callum Chambers might be another one you get to see play in the middle. So I would hope that the fans, if Flamini does leave, give him a good send-off if he gets the opportunity to have one. And don't be too upset, because there's plenty of others that we've got coming through.
No, fair enough. I think that's Flamini pretty much down to a T covered. So people in the chat box have picked it up, and I've just had a little look on social media and stuff. But Wojciech Szczęsny has uploaded a video to his Instagram saying hi to the Roma fans, and it was confirmed by Arsene Wenger yesterday or Friday that it was very likely that Szczęsny would be on his way to Roma on a season-long loan. That seems to have happened now. So, Neil, Szczęsny going to Roma, is it a good move for him, and is it a good move for the club?
I think Arsene summed it up really well. I think it's a good move for everybody. He has been here such a long time. It's probably going to do him a world of good to freshen up a little bit, get away from the club and play some games. I don't see how it would benefited him hugely by sitting on the bench and watching Czech every week. I think there's a lot to be said to training with Czech, yes, but there's nothing like game time. And as I said, I think freshening up away from the club will probably be doing some real good. I think we should be confident enough now in having Ospina as a number 2 and Demi Martinez as well, as if we do need a third. I think we're well stocked. The number 1 is of course is going to be undisputed. We are going to have Czech in goal, which I think we're all looking forward to. He was one that I was saying to Chris before we signed him that will make a huge difference to this club. It's kind of been the weak link, and I know Ospina had a great run and he kept lots of clean sheets, but was he ever a real solid one? I don't think he is. And you look at Czech, he's just a massive man mountain of a guy. He just oozes class, confidence, and you can already see he's demanding of his back 4. And I think that's very much what we lacked. And I genuinely believe with this squad, it's a championship winning squad.
Yeah, Czech for me is like we could have signed Benzema, and Czech still would have been a bigger signing for me in terms of impact on the team than Benzema would have been, just with the way of his experience and his winning mentality and the way he's won everything with a Premiership club. So Neil, I'm going to stick with you quickly and just ask about, I had it on here, but the loan deal for this ex-Milan goalkeeper called Emilia, I believe his name is. I don't know if you're in the know about anything to do with that, but thoughts on bringing another keeper on loan, even though we have 2 top-class goalkeepers, and also you have Emilio Martinez, and I know there are links with him going out on loan as well, but I didn't know what would be the need to bring in another one when we still have youngster keepers in the under-21s team and that, and I didn't know what your thoughts were on that sort of link.
I thought it was a really bizarre link. I was really surprised when I read it. I think the only way that you bring in somebody else is if they do send Martinez out on loan. He's actually very highly thought of, Martinez, at the club. So I don't know if they feel that getting him first team football may be of real benefit to him in his progression. And I guess anybody who's coming in as a third choice will know they're coming in as a third choice. So I don't know who fancies coming in and being a third choice keeper. It's tough enough trying to find a backup keeper, let alone that somebody wants to come in and be a third choice. So I think you may be right. You may be better off promoting Ryan Huddart from the 21s to the senior squad.
Yeah, I was in agreement with that. That is a bit of a weird one, and not why we would need to bring in another goalkeeper. And it's as if we got Szczęsny off a wage bill for a season, then you're going to replace that wage bill with another goalkeeper. So it's a bit strange, but Wenger works in mysterious ways. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Okay, we'll move it on to a player who's actually already left the Arsenal, and he's actually looking for a new club, and that player is Abu Diaby. He's been linked to West Brom. He appears to have had a medical at West Brom, and Tony Pulis has come out and confirmed that a deal has been offered to Diaby. But recent reports have suggested that Marseille have now come in and attempting to hijack that deal. Chris, with your knowledge of Liga football, would he fit into Marseille if they can keep him fit? And at the same time, if he was to go to West Brom, would that still be a good move for him?
Yeah. First thing I'll say, this is a terrible joke, but I've got to make it. When you said he's had a medical at West Brom, do you mean he's still having a medical at West Brom?
Yeah, I believe so. He's still on the table at the moment.
He's been there for 3 days. Bless him. No, a terrible joke. I'm sorry. Joking aside, I think everyone when he left Arsenal, apart from those that are just, well, frankly, dickheads, all hope that the guy gets a career. Nobody wants to go through what he has, and it's not his fault that his career was cut short with us, because he would be in our midfield now. I've got absolutely no doubt about that. He'd also be running France's midfield, by the way, if he was fit. So, but on Marseille, the short answer is yes. I don't know if you know, but Marseille sold Imbula to Porto this summer for sort of 20 odd million euros. Gilbert Imbula, who was kind of in the Diaby mould, not anywhere near as talented in my opinion, but he was in that sort of position. And they do need to fill that gap. That they also let go of Cheroux at the start of January, and they never really replaced him when he went to, I think it was Toronto from memory, I think he went to. So they haven't really replaced him. They have brought in the lad from Nantes, whose name escapes me, Kudu, I think his name is, and Kudu, who is more of a kind of a replacement, if there was to be one, for Imbula, but they've still got a hole there. The lad from Man City, Rekic, they got in as well. Will provide competition. The one that was slightly strange for me, that Marseille, obviously the link with Diaby, the main reason that I think it's a bit of a strange one is they did get Lassana Diarra on a free transfer this week, who Arsenal fans will be well aware of. And he, for me, would seem to be more the player that they would have gone for over Diaby. If they're looking to get Diaby as well, I'm not quite sure where he'd fit in. That being said, you could easily play Diaby slightly further forward in the midfield rather than deeper. He's good enough. And again, also, if the fitness is a worry, which, let's be honest, all cards on the table, it should be, maybe he's a gamble, and maybe they just see it as, well, we'll get him on a pay as you play. If you're getting a player like Abu Diaby on a pay as you play deal, I don't think you've got anything to lose, because you're not losing anything financially. And if he gives you 10 to 15 games a season, or somehow gets himself fit, he's that good that he can transform a whole midfield. So, it's an interesting one. I think if he went to West Brom under Pulis, I wonder how his body would cope. I don't imagine Tony Pulis does a light training session. I don't imagine he encourages players to not have contact. So I'm not sure how that would work. Equally, I'm not sure how a Bielsa type of fitness regime would work for him either, because Bielsa's quite famously pushes his players extremely hard for the first 5 or 6 months of the season, and then often the teams peter out, which is exactly what happened to Marseille last year. So it'll be interesting. And as Neil's just put in our chat box there, I think he's bang on. He kind of needs that kind of Ledley King role almost, where he's just managed through games and he almost doesn't really train. He just keeps himself fit and just plays the games. But in a very, very long-winded answer to your question, I think he'll improve any team he goes to, and I think he would pick Marseille over West Brom purely because it obviously it's back in France. It's a completely fresh start. It's a new country, and the schedule might be a bit less sort of taxing than it would be in the Premier League. That being said, League One is quite physical, so let's just hope he gets football.
Yeah, no, I can't agree more. I mean, I'm big fan of Diaby. I mean, he's just, I can't say how many times I feel I'm so unlucky for him for what happened, but unfortunately that's football at the end of the day. I'll just quickly address something in the chat. We've asked some questions from you guys, which is great. So your support and your viewing and your interaction with us is brilliant, and it really helps us to move on with the podcast. Staying about, if we could sort of stick to the transfer sort of area, because that's where more this whole thing is more about. We tried to keep the Bergkamp Wonderland stuff to more Arsenal squad-based stuff, but as you saw at the beginning of the vidcast, we do like to throw in some player stuff now and again. But yeah, so if you've got any transfer-linked questions, throw them in, and we'll try and answer them. So I'm going to go completely hypocritical of what I just said, and just see the first question that I saw, which is Dr. Gray going, do you think the current team is enough to win the league or the Champions League if they stay fit? So John, I'll throw that hypocritical question at you.
Oh, if they stay fit, yep. I think for the league, definitely. Champions League, we use the horrible cliche of it depends on the draw and who you get in it, because it is a cup competition. It's the new format this year as well. So the group stages will be certainly more interesting. But I think because of the new format, coming second in your group isn't going to matter as much as it did in the past. because of the way the competition is being played out now. So, yeah, I think Champions League, it's difficult to balance the two, but we've definitely got a bigger squad now. If we got one more player, then I'd say we could do both. I'm not going to tell you who that player is. It's a complete secret. I'm just going to ring Arsene later and obviously let him know, but I can't tell you. Sorry.
I think we're on the same wavelength. I think I've got that player in my mind as well, John. So we're just there at the moment. So, Neil, yeah, same question goes to you.
I think we can win the league with this team. Genuinely do. I think the togetherness, the cohesion of the team, all that kind of chat, it's there. This team's been building over time, and I think there are similarities to when Lehmann came in, that it was the final piece in the jigsaw. And I think the same could be seen with Czech. I don't think we'll go on to win the Champions League, no, but I do think that we could win the Premiership. And personally, that would do for me.
Yeah, no, I'd take league any day. So, yeah, no, Neil, I'll stick with you quickly because A4 Arsenal FC has asked, could the Di Maria move, if it's on the cards and if it looks like happening, which it very much does at the moment with all the reports coming out, could it cause a domino effect which could benefit Arsenal in some way?
It could do. I don't think it will. I don't think that's the one to set things off. I think PSG have been quite clear that the one player that teams seemed to be interested in was Cavani, and he's not going anywhere. So unless they make that surprise move of getting rid of Ibra, and he would have to find a home, I can't see it. I do just think that he's going to be a huge addition to their squad. They don't need to sell. This is not one of those clubs that is buying a player at a huge amount of money and needs to balance it off by selling X, Y, and Z. They will try and have as many players as possible.
No, yeah. I'd have to agree that the transfers to watch are normally going to have to be around. I'm looking at Dortmund and Royce. I'm looking at Real Madrid, and they normally seem to bring in some superstar every season. So depending on who they could bring in, could set off some chain somewhere. Joe Junior's asked a very sly transfer question about where is the button monkey. Now, where is the button monkey? That's what we all want to know.
He's there.
He's watching. He's listening, but he's been transferred away from the keyboard. Someone's lit his tyres down, so he can't get across the room to get to the keyboard. Unfortunately, I'm looking at Mr. Davies. Some Welsh justice has been impacted on him.
Applied. Tom, can I just jump in on PSG quickly? Mm-hmm. Two things that have just come up in the chat box. Firstly, I agree with Neil. I don't think that PSG's business is going to affect us. However, who I do think it will affect is Man United. I've got a close pal who lives in France who's fairly well connected. I suppose you'd call him like the French Jeff Arsenal, if there is such a thing. He knows a lot about a lot of people, and he's very close to somebody that works at L'Équipe, which is obviously one of the biggest sources in French football. And they've pretty much said that Di Maria has been done for nearly a month. And they've just been sorting out all of the stuff that Neil alluded to earlier on about the things like image rights, housing, all the little things that Neil mentioned about going into a transfer. Apparently, is what's being sorted, and Van Gaal has played this with a straight bat in that. Oh yes, he's coming out to America and he's training well and blah blah blah. Apparently, that's rubbish. It's been done for a while, so I expect that one to be announced quite soon. What that does present Manchester United with, of course, is quite a lot of money and a big striker-shaped hole to fill it with. So I think potentially, whilst the business to PSG might not affect Arsenal, the deals that Manchester United might try and do might possibly affect Arsenal. And again, somebody alluded to in the chat box, I'm nowhere near in the know. I'm purely speculating. But hashtag welcome Kareem. I just wonder if that might present things with or might present sort of business happening. Also, Manchester City are looking to ship out Jovetic is off to Inter Milan, which I know me and John are happy about. And Edin Dzeko is another one that are looking to shift. Whether he ends up at Roma or somewhere else could happen. So I wonder if Manchester City might be hunting for a striker as well. So I just wonder what might happen there. The only other thing with PSG I wanted to mention was Rabiot, Adrien Rabiot. Again, I followed the PSG Chelsea game last night. He was erratic at best. Didn't have his best game. What I would say about Rabiot is that yes, he's a really talented young footballer, and yes, he will go on to have I think a very, very good career, and I think he'll be a top talent. What I would say though is for people who think he's a quote unquote that magical word or magical 2 letters DM, he's not. So please stop saying he is. And also he's a reserve for PSG. Are you seriously telling me that a PSG reserve walks into Arsenal's starting lineup? No, not for me. He doesn't improve us. He doesn't really add anything that we haven't already got. And dare I say it, he's more of a Spurs type of level signing for me, because he would walk into Spurs midfield. To be fair, Danny would walk into Spurs midfield. Well, role. But no, I don't think Rabiot will be a fit. And if we suddenly present him as a signing tomorrow, then I'm very sorry. I clearly know nothing. But I don't think he'll improve Arsenal. And to be honest, I think there's more likelihood of PSG loaning him somewhere to get him first team football than anything else. And for those of you that think he's a defensive midfielder, then answer me why they bought Benjamin Stambouli. So yeah, just leave you with that one. But yeah, I don't think he would be an upgrade on what Arsenal have already got.
Just quickly jumping on that, Fill Me Up, which I've only just realised what that name is, which is fantastic. Well done. was talking about the PSG midfielders and was asking if you could have one of the 3, but I think he mentioned Matuidi, Verratti, and I think Rabiot might have been the other one. Just for me personally, if I could have any of the 3, it'd be Verratti all day long. But I've got a thing for Italians, so that's just me. But Matuidi would probably fit our team better personally, because it's just the sort of distances he covers in a game, unbelievable. But yeah, I'd go always go Italian is my rule.
John is spot on with that one, by the way. Verratti is the one. I would walk over broken glass, dragging my knob across it every inch to see Blaise Matuidi in an Arsenal shirt, just because I just think he is just unbelievably good at what he does. But Verratti is the talent. And also somebody mentioned, forgive me, I don't know who, I think it was Jahazi. Oh, I forget. I always forget his bloody name. Jazz Shaheen, I'm sure that's his name. We were chatting earlier on, and he was saying Thiago Motta is on the move as well. He's coming out of PSG, or he's looking to move. Would I go for him? Personally, no, just because the guy's an absolute hothead, and he's just an accident waiting to happen. And everything Neil said about what Arsene Wenger likes in a pro, no. As a footballer, he'd be absolutely brilliant, because he'd give you 10, 15 games a season, but he'd also kick the crap out of people 10 or 15 games a season and probably be suspended for 90% of the time he was at the club. So expect to see him pitching up at Spurs anytime now.
Fair enough. It's all good insight there, Chris. Loving it. We've only got a few minutes left of this vidcast, so I'm gonna start wrapping it up. One of our good friends of the pod, Akib, has asked a question about who would be the ideal striker we could bring in. And I know we've done this striker talk to death. I can see Neil blowing his cheeks out, bored out of his mind about it. But if I was going to answer it, I mean, I'm going to give you all the option of going, except for we're going to go for the Lord Harris view, in which we have £200 million to spend, and obviously with the only players we can't buy are Ronaldo and Messi. So apparently we can buy everyone. So in my mind, and it's a bit of a controversial view, but it is one of the strikers we've been linked to, and I would love to see Aubameyang in an Arsenal shirt. And I can't help loving this guy for his absolute monstrous pace, but he scores goals as well as being a speed demon. He's got, like, people saying he's another Walcott. He's not. He's really not. because he can finish a lot better than Walcott can. He's a lot more physical than what Walcott is. He's got a few more inches on what Walcott has, definitely. And he scores. He's in a Dortmund team which had an awful season. He's one of the reasons why they didn't stay at the bottom of that league for the whole campaign. And for me, Aubameyang for 28 million would be a steal. But unfortunately, it seems like he's not the player that they really want to let go of, and I don't blame them, to be honest. John, I'll throw it to you. You're smiling away there, probably laughing at my Aubameyang comment, but
no, not at all. Everyone's allowed their opinion. I was actually laughing at Kelly, as Chris is just laughing at as well because she loves Suarez so much. 200 million, any striker I wanted. Well, I can give you a proper answer, or I could give you a stupid one.
Give me both.
Okay. Proper answer, it would be Lewandowski. If you don't know why, then stop watching football because you're an idiot. And my stupid answer would be you go and buy a DeLorean, which probably are collector's items now, so maybe 20 grand. You build a flux capacitor, and you go back about, how many years did you have to go back? 17 years, and you go and get Fat Ronaldo, who is not fat, and you put him up front. And, I mean, you don't even need an attacking midfielder then. You just lump the ball to him and you just get all the goals. Simple.
No, I'm happy to accept all the rules.
I told you it wasn't a sensible answer.
You
were pre-warned.
200 million might not be enough.
Yeah, but, you saw the budget for Back to the Future. You can definitely do it for 200 million.
I saw the budget for a lot of films now. They managed to do a lot of stuff. So, but Chris, go on. I'll throw it to you. Any striker you want for 200 million?
Kevin Doyle, gotta be. No, I think I'm with John. I think Robert Lewandowski is the one. I think if you can have anyone in the prime at the age he's at, I think he would be the one. We've talked about Benzema to death. I do think he would be good with us, but I don't think it's going to happen. So there's no real point in going over that again. I'm with you on Aubameyang. I think he would. I think he'd be a lot better than a lot of people seem to think. But he's not fashionable enough, so that doesn't work, does it? But yeah, Lewandowski would be my answer. The only small caveat I'd add to that is, okay, it's not about, this isn't a big name signing and it's not about the money, but if we got sort of close to deadline day and we wanted another player who could do the Giroud role but offer us a little bit more, I wouldn't be disappointed at all if we bought Edin Dzeko. So that's my view.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, Neil.
Stolen my thunder, Chris. No, it's alright, mate. Edin Dzeko, I think, would be a fantastic buy. I really, really do. I think he offers slightly different things to Giroud, even though people would probably say they're the same player when they're not. But the one that does fit in, as two of you have mentioned already, is 26-year-old Lewandowski. Him in this side, he would score just bucketfuls of goals. And would pretty much, in my opinion, guarantee us the trophy, the championship trophy.
Fair enough. That's Lewandowski just seems to be the one, but Bayern Munich are never going to sell that man, are they? Like, they got him for a free. I mean, come on. Well, to be fair, 50 million throw at them. Would you think that would tempt them, Neil? 50 million?
Well, you've said it there. The fact that they got him on a free may be the thing that tempts them.
Chris? I'm sorry. No. Go for gold.
No. I'm just going to say if Pep does weird and wonderful things, and it wouldn't be totally surprising if he wanted to find a new way to play things without a central striker, and somebody offering you 50 million quid for something you didn't pay anything for is potentially very interesting. The other question is, would Lewandowski like a challenge outside of Germany? And I believe the answer is yes to that.
And I pretty much agree with everything Neil just said. I stole his thunder and he stole it right back. The point about Guardiola, he loves playing without centre forward. He always has done. And if you look at how Barcelona used to play, Messi was never an out-and-out number 9, was he? He'd always be that guy who'd play across the front, but he'd like to have two wingers that would cut in, somebody from midfield with pace that could get in front of the midfield. Thomas Muller is the obvious choice to move slightly further forward for Bayern Munich. They've just brought in Douglas Costa. I think, is it Douglas Costa, John? I think it's Douglas Costa.
Yeah, Douglas Costa from Shakhtar. Yeah, we've got Goetze as well, obviously.
Exactly.
Who was called the German Messi, wasn't he, by Rummenigge or something, one of them.
And if you move Muller through the middle, that offers the opportunity to move Goetze in behind, which means he gets more game time, which is the reason that Xherdan Shaqiri left, because he wasn't getting game time. So, the pieces are kind of there. Unfortunately, like with Benzema, people will sort of talk themselves into it or talk themselves out of it, whichever way you look at it. I totally agree with Neil. I think that Pep likes a project. He likes an opportunity to sort of change things around, and also, who's to say Bayern Munich wouldn't fancy going and getting another striker with the money that they could get from Lewandowski. I'm not a massive Gonzalo Higuain fan, for example, but in Germany he'd probably get a bucket full of goals. Don't think it would happen, but you just don't know what these managers are thinking, and like Neil's also said, with the money, Lewandowski is going to be on very big wages as well, and again, like we've all alluded to, I wonder if the player himself, he spent pretty much the whole of his career in Germany, or certainly his sort of adult career, would he like to test himself at another level? And as we've all said previously in these vidcasts, money talks. And if you walk up to Bayern and say, look, we'll take the player off the wage budget for you, and we'll pay 50, maybe even 60 million. I think it would be very, very hard to resist, and even one of the best clubs in the world. Barcelona didn't turn down the offer for Alexis. Okay, they had Suarez, but I just think money talks, and it would be, what would be really interesting is if we just tested the water. That would be the interesting part. My biggest worry is that Man United big bodge of cash they've got. That's my worry, because if Lewandowski ends up at United, again, I'm with Neil, I think that could win them a title, which, please God, does that not happen?
No, I completely agree with that. I cannot tell you how much. I think it'd be more painful than seeing Van Persie in a Van United shirt. I really think it would, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, we've been going for over an hour now. I'm going to wrap this up. Before we finish, I want to say thanks to everyone in the chat box, and it seems to be a bit heated tonight, more than it has on previous nights. So just to put that out there, remember guys, this is just a chat about football. We're all Arsenal fans, we're all wanting the same thing at the end of the day, and it doesn't matter who you support or where you come from or where you're supporting them from, we're all Arsenal fans and we're all one big family, and we really don't need the hostility and everything that goes with that. So try and keep your questions to us, and it's great for you guys to be having a little debate between each other, but yeah, keep it sweet, keep it cool, keep it calm, and that's all we want. So we hope you've enjoyed tonight. John, thank you for coming on.
That's all right, Tom. Yeah, just quickly to everyone watching, Mr. Schrader, I assume there will be one next week. We're not 100% yet. He is away at the Gold Cup final, I think, this weekend. It was his birthday the other day, so I assume it's all part of his birthday celebrations. So we don't know what he's drinking, so we can't give you a drink update like we normally do, but I'm sure he will tell you when he's back on. But I imagine whatever he's drinking lots of it. Yeah, so yeah, no, thanks for having me on. Nice as always.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you on, the bearded one. So, Chris, quickly, I've got a little question for you. Will there be an ABW radio show after the Community Shield match?
Thanks for asking me, Tom. It was almost like we planned that, but we genuinely didn't, did we? Because I was just going to mention that. Yes, there will be an ABW radio show. For those of you that don't know, the podcast is set to return on Thursday, as far as I know. We have to dig Gimli out of. Gimli's been in. Anyone that's a fan of Alien, Gimli's been in hypersleep for the summer, so he's been in a cryo chamber for a number of months, just doing nothing but smoking weed. That's all he's been doing all summer in his cryo chamber. So he will be released soon. Danny's got the keys, and he keeps them in his mini cheddars box. So we have to dig through the remnants of that first, and then we will release the Gimney. So yeah, joking aside, the podcast should return on Thursday. I think from what I've been told, it's going to be a bit of a free-for-all, so there'll pretty much be as many of the regular faces on as available as possible. So I'm not sure, we might even be doing it on here. So it might be a hangout, it might not, but just stay tuned to the Twitter account. I'm sure all will be revealed. Danny will be updating you throughout the week. And yes, we will have a radio show next, was it Sunday, isn't it? Next Sunday. I've got a pre-season friendly I've got to manage in the morning, so I plan to come back, watch the game, and then we'll be straight on pretty much an hour after the game. No idea who's going to be on it yet. Stay tuned for that. The plan going forward, as we mentioned before, next season is that myself, Dom, Tom, and John will be the regular faces, and Danny, of course, and then we'll be having one person each month, maybe two, depending on how the schedules go, newbie. So we'll be introducing some new faces, and I'm hoping for next week's Charity Shield, one of those new faces will be introduced. So and I can tell you it's a lady. So hopefully we will have some new blood coming on, and obviously, like Neil's joined us tonight, I'm hoping to get the bloggers on every once in a while as well, so that they can have a little chat as well as putting stuff in writing. Just before I plug something else, Tom, did you want to give somebody's blog a shout from earlier on?
Of course I do. Luka Kolakusic, who is a very good friend of our pod, has written a blog. I will be reading it tonight. I don't know if any of you guys have read it already.
I have.
Yeah, I had a read through earlier. Very good.
Yeah.
Very different as well, which I liked.
What's the topic?
It's how he transitioned from being a supporter of another team into an Arsenal fan, and it's a really good read. And there's a lovely picture of him and Eduardo on there as well. So
Yes,
I hope it was a Spurs fan transitioning.
not quite, but
It's almost
yeah,
as
it is.
bad.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is nearly as bad. Yeah.
Well, I'll be interested to read that later. So yeah, definitely go check that out. It's on his Twitter if you follow him. Just type in Luka Kolakusic and it will come up. It's how it sounds is how you spell it or hear about. So yeah, have a go. I'm sure Danny probably would have struggled, but you guys will be able to tackle that much easier. Finally, it's been a great pleasure, Neil, having you on. Honestly, you provide some real good insight. I really hope we can have you back on again soon at some point, because it's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you for having me, guys. It's been a lot of fun, and any time, and just time to plug my new book, actually. Only joking, but thank you very much for your time, guys.
That's not you serious then.
It would have been brilliant if I had, though.
It would. Do you want to just plug the you mentioned it earlier, Neil? But do you want to just give the bloggers a quick nudge, the names of them, and
our extension link is running out of sockets here, Chris.
Sorry, still got one more yet.
Have a look on the ABW website and find the blogger section. I have to say that the guys write some amazing stuff. Simon, Drew, OG, as you know, there's some really fantastic content, which leads to some really interesting debate. And when I say debate with these guys on Twitter, that they will happily discuss anything with you, as long as it's friendly and clean. We all seem to have some fantastic discussions in our groups on WhatsApp, etc. And it's a real pleasure to actually speak to so many of these guys who have such valid opinions about the one club that we all love. It's definitely worth the read.
Jake is the other member as well. Jake in Alls. So
God, he's gonna kill me.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's gonna have you flat. Yeah, one final thing, Tom, and I promise I'll shut up. I promise. Honestly, I'm doing a carpenter. After next week's radio show, I am finally going to do the Pirates draw. I'm really, really, really sorry for anyone that has donated. Thank you 1,000 times over again. I planned to give away the match-worn shirts nearly a month ago now, and I've had so much going on, and I've had such a busy schedule, I've just not got around to it. I promise, we will do the draw. We will do it live on YouTube, so everyone will be able to see who the winners are. It will be done. I'm hoping Danny will be on, so that he can help me, because he helped me last year, and we will do the draw. What that gives you all is it gives a few people who, if they're still interested in donating, they can do. If you visit our website, which is barbicanpiratesfc.com, and you go to the donate button, there are 3 match-worn Arsenal shirts available to be won. Mertesacker, Koscielny and Rosicki shirts from the 2011-12 season. There's also a separate Jenko draw, which is for a Carl Jenkinson shirt as well. So there's lots of goodies, as well as the Arsenal shirt book, which is also excellent. So if you've got a spare couple of quid and you want to chuck it our way and go into the draw, feel free. If not, and you have already donated, very best of luck. I promise, I will finally get round to drawing the names out of the hat after the Charity Shield radio show. So stay tuned and stay locked to our at Barbie Pirates FC Twitter account, and hopefully I'll finally get round to doing it. Sorry again.
No, that's fine. And finally, our last plug. No, I'm joking. Chris has really burnt us out. So,
sorry.
Wow, that closing out went on for 12 minutes. Thank you for staying with us, guys. We hope you enjoyed the show. As Chris said, we hope to be back next week with another OTK. We hope we've given you a bit of ITK from all OTK minds. So yeah, thank you. And John's now going to switch us off. Thank you, John.
Bye-bye, everybody.